Hi
Hey.
everyone! So it's finally time for another edition of What We Read.
Yes, we did.
We are wrapping up the second season because we're getting closer and closer to Book Expo time.
That is it. That is true.
Fingers
That is true. Very
crossed.
exciting. Very exciting.
But today we're here to talk about a couple of books that we read in the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to kick things off by talking about a book that is highly anticipated by a lot of people, and that book is Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. It's the first book in a new series, and it has two main characters. There is a prince who is also a general who is now being recalled back to his kingdom in order for his dad to sort of put him in an arranged marriage, among other political manipulations. And then there is a girl who has been groomed all her life to be the savior of her country, to save them from this kingdom that they're at war with, because she has this connection to the gods that's undeniable.
Ooh, that's cool.
It's all interwoven into a setting that is richly inspired by Russian culture, or Russian elements, I should say. And it was good. I think I had just really high expectations for it, so I went into them knowing this, and for me, like, it was a solid series starter, but it wasn't anything that really, like, super reeled me in, at least until the very last third of it. The magic system and the warring beliefs are very interesting, and I am curious to see what will happen next after everything that happens in the last third, because that's when the most action actually takes place. But other than that, like, it was good. Like, it was fine. I know a lot of people are excited for this one, so I do hope that if you are excited to read it and you do get a chance to read it, that you love it and enjoy it maybe a little more than I did. But for now, I'm just going to say that this was a solid series starter and leave it at that.
Awesome.
Okay. The next book that I read was actually an ebook that I borrowed from the library, and it was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This one is set at a boarding school in Vermont that is run by some rich person. The entire concept of this boarding school is that you have to be really, really passionate about something or really good at something, and that's how you get accepted into the school. You don't have to pay for anything once you're there. You just have to do, like, hone your craft, whatever it is. And so the main character of the book, her thing is that she loves mysteries, like, she loves solving them, and so her big project when she gets there is to solve the mystery of the Ellingham murders, which has remained a cold case for years and years now. And the killer, the only thing that they know is that the killer is someone who signed off on a ransom note as Truly Devious. And let me just tell you, a lot of drama unfolds, obviously, and the murderer may or may not still be at large and has returned to the academy. And it was okay. Like, this one I also had really high expectations for because a lot of people really loved it and, like, are really looking forward to the sequel that came out last month. In my opinion, it was a little underdeveloped in terms of the mystery. Like, a lot of it only picked up in the mystery in the last part. And I also think that the characters are also underdeveloped. They all felt sort of cardboard cutout-y. I did like that they used, like, the format where it flips from the present day back to, like, little transcription notes or other observations from the past storyline. That was good. And the anxiety rep is also pretty good in this one. But other than that, I have to say I was less than impressed, which is rather unfortunate. I don't know if I'll continue the series. I haven't really seen anyone talk about the sequel, The Vanishing Stair, yet. But who knows? I'll never say never. Okay, the third book that I want to talk about is a book that has very controversial opinions depending on which side of the spectrum you fall on. And that book is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Yes, I can finally say I have read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte.
They wither.
I swear, the entire time I was reading this, I just remembered how Mackie, like, responded to this when I hauled it in a video. And I was just like, this is so appropriate, but also, like, why is this in my head right now?
In my head, there's like 3 or 4 chapters. Every 3 or 4 chapters, somebody mentions how the heights wither.
This entire novel is basically about a group of people who live on the same estate and how their lives intertwine from when they're kids until they're older. I know why a lot of people don't like it, because none of the characters are likable, and they definitely do not do things that are likable either, so you're just like, there's nothing redeeming them. And the story is kind of a little crazy, because a lot of drama goes down here, like, a lot of drama. But I will say that I can understand why it was so widely studied, because the setting is really well done and atmospheric, and in terms of character studies, like, even if you don't like them, like, there's just something that makes you want to read this book. At least for me, it was because I was nosy and I just wanted to see everyone get their comeuppance by the end of it. It's also surprisingly readable. I was expecting it to be a little denser and harder to get into, but it's not. So I'm glad I can say I finally read it. I don't think I would ever read it again because I freaking hate them, like, these characters, especially Heathcliff, who is the worst.
Oh, dear.
But yeah, at least I can finally say I read it, and this edition is very pretty, so there's also that.
Lovely.
And the fourth book I'm going to talk about is a book that I really enjoyed, and that book is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Nikolai duology, and I have been waiting for this book forever, or it feels like it's been forever. So this essentially takes place after all the events in the first Grishaverse trilogy and in the Six of Crows duology.
Wow.
So you will be spoiled for the series if you haven't read either, for sure. Like, there's no doubt, because a lot of what's happening here is the consequence of the things that happened in both those series. So Nikolai is dealing with the situation that he's currently in after all of the events of the war, which I'm trying not to say, like, I'm trying not to be spoiler because Becca hasn't read it yet. There is another point of view character, this time from Six of Crows, named Nina, who is also dealing with what happens to her at the very end of that series. And there's Zoya, who is a character from the first series. And I have to say, I immediately clicked with Nikolai's point of view, which is unsurprising because I love him. I keep saying he is my one true Grishaverse love, and he is, even until now, and it just makes him even more human and more relatable just to read about his struggle in this book. And then, I did not expect to, but I really like Zoya. I think she just reminds me of Maki a little bit, just the level of sass and like the sheer, like, she does not put up with anyone's bullshit, basically, is what she is, and I love her for it. Nina is also a character that I love dearly because I got to know her in the Six of Crows series, and to see her come into her own yet again in this book is a tremendous thing. And so even though it took me a little while to warm up to her storyline, by the end of this book I was thoroughly invested, and I cannot wait to find out what happens in the second and last book, which is so far away. Let's switch over to Maki for a comics break.
For a comic, indeed. We should rename this to a miniseries of what she read, because I haven't been reading any books in the last month, I'd like to think. I haven't picked up an actual book. I mean, I tried. I've been doing a bunch of other things too. Since I do have Kindle Unlimited on my every device, and Comixology goes on sale every so often, I'm going to start with my reread of The Wicked and the Divine Omnibus number 3 had come out. I think that collects about, I want to say maybe 2 of the kind of trade paperbacks that were just kind of scrunched together. For those of you who may have been following my read of the Wicked and the Divine series, it's a story about a world where, contemporary paranormal, where every 100 years a pantheon of 10 gods are born, where they are worshipped for a few years to the heights of, frenzy and madness, and then they all die. And then the cycle gets reborn every so often. The first 2 bits of the omnibus focus more on like this one person who's been a fan of these gods, and then eventually discovers how she fits in place with them, and then a huge cliffhangery crazy reveal at the end of the second omnibus that leads us into the third, where things go off the rails and things go off book, and you'd think that they're done with the cliff. Off the rails. They do. You think you knew who the good guys and the bad guys were. You think who you could rely on or not. But then the third omnibus comes out, and then all of a sudden, complete plot twist. I'm very excited to see what Kieran Gillen and the others have.
I'm sorry, every time you say it, I'm like...
I know, Kieran Gillen, Karen Gillen, right? Karen, Gillen,
They're
Gillen.
too close to each other.
Way too close, especially when you pronounce them. So anyway, so I highly recommend this. It's, again, it's Baby Gaiman, right? It's
toddler Gaiman.
I hate to make that distinction, but or rather it's next gen Gaiman. It's like, that's just how it is. It's just the newer generation of writers and artists that are bringing such vibrant colors to life. Still a fan of the gods, still want to be reborn as one of them. That's like super cool. Anyway, I would like to now end this with one-shot issues. I want to start with Fantastic Four #1. Now, for those of you who have been following the Marvel TV universe and then the movie universe, we haven't heard of the Fantastic Four since that terrible movie with Michael B. Jordan in it.
Oh man, I totally had forgotten about that movie.
It was abysmal, it was terrible, and nobody really liked it. And it's not like the first two. And because here's the thing with Marvel, if Marvel doesn't own the rights to, especially when the movie started booming, when Iron Man started to boom like crazy, and then they knew that they had like a cinematic universe, everything that didn't sort of belong to Marvel suddenly got the axe comics-wise. So the X-Men suddenly had this whole Death of the X-Men kind of run, where Terrigen Mists pretty much almost redid the decimation. And then, now that things have flipped over, the humans are, now that the X-Men are back with Marvel, not the Inhumans that they're trying to kill. Fantastic Four was the same, but now
that's the only way to get rid of someone.
Unfortunately, but now that Fantastic Four are back, I do want to say that there's a lot of nostalgia here for I was about to say America's first family. No, it was Marvel's first family, because what distinguishes the Fantastic Four from every other group title ever, the X-Men, the Avengers, everything, is that they really are quite literally a family.
Yeah.
Reed and Ben as surrogate brothers. You've got Sue and Johnny, who are, actual siblings.
Remember the time when Chris Evans played Johnny?
Oh boy, that was fun. That was the funnest I've seen. Like, Chris Evans was a perfect Johnny Storm. That was the one great thing there, because who would want to make Jessica Alba invisible? Who in there? Anyway.
Apparently them.
But anyway, point is, anybody who is a Fantastic Four fan would, I think, appreciate the nostalgia call to it, and because the last time we saw the Fantastic Four, Reed and kids and Sue were off in some random negative zone exploration type deal, leaving Johnny and Ben on Earth. And that's it. The family had split and everyone went their own way. But now that they're back, oh boy, the way Reed finally finds a way to make contact with Johnny and Ben was just like tears to see them move on and then come together. We'll see what stories they tell. So Astonishing X-Men Annual. So a couple of these are annuals. Annuals usually give comic writers a chance to tell a story outside of the actual arcs and sort of explore more character in depth rather than sort of building the new world. And this one was pretty crazy because at this point in time, Cyclops is dead.
Great.
Jean Grey is back from the dead.
Killing the people I like. Okay.
Warren has regained his memories, but is now struggling to keep Archangel. As you know, he's back to that. Like, Archangel is lurking in there, and he's a murderous creature of destruction underneath that nice blonde veneer. Hank has screwed with time and screwed with everybody else, and everybody hates him, but not. He's just so done with everything. Bobby's gay, finally out and gay, not just kind of I'll ride this out and see until his younger self outed him. Jean, after coming back from the dead, invites them all to dinner at the place that they celebrated after their first mission with Charles Xavier.
Okay. Only
for the dinner party to be crashed by the reincarnated Charles Xavier. I know this is why people don't follow comics.
I'm confused.
Only for their dinner party to be crashed by the reincarnated sort of psyche of Charles Xavier in the body of some random mutant that maybe nobody needs to know at this point in time. But the idea is for them to hash out the angst of, you know, giving their lives to Xavier's dream and having to, you know, flesh that out together was kind of an experience. Of course, there was a mission and they had to like defeat some bad guys, but there was some weird time displacey, timey-wimey, mind control, mind wipe thing where the basic message is you can whine a lot about what you lost to this dream, but we have no choice but to either protect mankind or hate them. So what's your choice? And so that was Astonishing X-Men Annual. And lastly, we'll leave it at this. The XMen Gold Annual, which is kind of anticlimactic suddenly. I don't know why I put this last. But for those of you who are fans of baby Kitty Pryde, we're talking around the time when she first joined the X-Men. She's 14 years old. She's this young Jewish mutant who is just like, I'm making my mark on the world. She was a huge, you know, landmark. She was one of the youngest mutants that we've seen in a long time since the first set of X-Men, and female, and sort of kind of a badass Phoenix Saga. And it shows just Kitty at camp. Summer camp, where she's struggling with the bigotry of you know, people thinking, you know, the mutant scare and whatever, and her to see maybe an ostracized camp member that was a mutant too, and to sort of find her place in the world and not even just stick up, but like figure out how to move forward from there and strengthen her resolve that she is going to give her life to the cause of Xavier, which, oh, look at how that dovetailed. So where you've got the X-Men who are like, that sucked. You've got Kitty Pryde now leading the X-Men with no regrets. And I think that's a great way to sort of kind of dovetail my little X-Men venture.
So I am very honored to be able to talk about a book by someone who's actually my friend, and that book is The Art of Losing by Lizzie Mason. This book actually came out this week, so you guys should definitely check it out. It's the story of a teen named Harley Langston, and the beginning of the novel sets her in a place where her sister is in a coma after getting into an accident in a car that was being driven by Harley's drunk ex-boyfriend.
Oh,
and Harley technically should have been driving Audrey, her sister, home, except that Harley found her sister and her ex-boyfriend making out at the party. Harley is forced to confront her feelings about Audrey's situation, about her ex's alcoholism, about people's addictions, about her own problem with being able to express her feelings, and it's a lot of stuff. It's a big character study, really. It's very internalized. A lot of this story is just about Harley and how she's trying to make sense of this complicated life situation she's now in, these complicated emotions that she has to deal with, and how she wants to respond to them. And I think the way it's portrayed is very interesting, and I like that it's a character study because I tend to prefer reading stories that are character driven. And so you definitely should check this one out. I also really love that the title of this book came from a poem that's actually the epigraph of this book, so you guys should read it.
That's gorgeous.
And then, because I needed something a little bit lighter after that, I read Devil's Daughter by Lisa Kleypas. This is the 5th book in her Ravenel series. And this book is particularly special because, first of all, the main character is West. He is the brother of the love interest in the first book of this series. And in the first book, he's kind of a jerk. And he's kind of a terrible person, but as the series has gone on, he's actually turned himself into someone respectable and someone like that a lot of, like, nice. He loves his family and he loves like the people he surrounds himself with. He's really put himself into making the estate that he and his brother have inherited into like a fully functioning estate. And yeah, so he is a love interest. But the girl love interest in this book is Phoebe, and she happens to be the daughter of my favorite couple in another historical romance series that Lisa Kleypas wrote, The Wallflowers, and it's great. I love it so much. She's Sebastian and Evie's daughter, in case the red hair was not a dead giveaway. But this entire story starts off with Phoebe not liking West on principle because West used to bully her now deceased husband when they were back at boarding school, and she doesn't want to find him attractive. She doesn't want to even like consider having a thing with him, but he's kind of impossible to resist. And so it's really a matter of, will they allow their past to stand in the way of their future? ... This is a romance, so I'm pretty sure you can probably guess how that ends, but it was just delightful. I really enjoyed this book. It was fun. It had a lot of banter. I really enjoyed the back and forth of West and Phoebe's relationship. It is still not my favorite in this series, I don't think, and it also will never top how I feel about The Wallflowers, which is another series she wrote, but it's definitely enjoyable, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. I will also link to my full-on blog post so you can see my full thoughts on it, because that's probably up at this point. So the next book I'm going to talk about is actually an audiobook. It's the first one I listened to this year, and it was a delightful audiobook because I finally listened to How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell, and that is narrated by David Tennant.
Gewalt.
It's so good. I mean, I already love How to Train Your Dragon just because the story itself is entertaining. Though. Essentially, this first book covers the story of Hiccup and how he becomes an official member of his tribe. And that involves a lot of shenanigans involving dragons, obviously. Because
humans are pitted against dragons. The humans have a terrible understanding of dragons.
Yeah,
for whatever reason,
Hiccup.
Hiccup gets them. And when he does...
Actually, Hiccup can talk to them. Yeah. He speaks Dragonese.
And the dragons actually talk in this book, last I checked. Yes. As opposed to sort of like the weird sort of burpy sounds that Hiccup makes.
It's so delightful. The book is a combination of the story, and the story does include the dragons talking. It also has like little profiles of some of the dragons, so it's like, this is a Commodore dragon, da-da-da-da-da.
That's cute.
And there's like little signs, and it's so great just listening to David Tennant speak. Just listening to him with his lovely Scottish accent, just give life to this world and these characters is amazing. I am pretty sure I'm just going to end up like listening to the audio for the rest of it too, because it was just so dang enjoyable. I think the only reason I would want to see the physical one is to see the illustrations of the dragons. But other than that, like, I think I'm just going to go full on audio for it just because it's all David Tennant. I love it so much. So yes, would definitely recommend listening to that one if you love David Tennant as much as we do.
Awesome.
Okay, and the last book I'm going to talk about in this video is another ebook, and that book is Running with Lions by Julian Winters. This is the story of Sebastian Hughes, who goes away to a summer soccer training camp with his teammates. And his team is pretty unique because their coach has fought for it to be a place of like equal acceptance for everyone, no matter what your race, gender, sexuality, whatever it is. And so the entire summer was supposed to just be like, you know, a lead up to senior year and an amazing senior year. But then his ex-best friend Amir Shah suddenly shows up at the summer soccer training camp without warning, and he doesn't know what to make of that. And so this entire summer explores like friendship, it explores relationships, it explores like thinking about your future and what you want to do, and like whether it's better for you to follow what you want or to listen to what other people want, whether you should have the same typical path as other people. And it was good. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought the team, like the members of the team, were so much fun to read about. The summer camp setting was so great to read about. The one reason that I didn't love this one as much as I would have liked to, however, is the way it was written. There's just something about the narrative style and the voice, the way that Sebastian was written, that didn't really click with me. It felt a little bit detached, which is kind of sad because I would have loved to be even more invested in him and in his relationship with Amir. And yeah, but it was overall a really quick and really fun read, and I would still recommend checking it out if it sounds at all appealing to you.
Cool.
Okay, that pretty much wraps up this what we read video. We would love to hear what you guys have been reading. Let us know if you've read anything in our video. I would love to know what you think of Wuthering Heights because I'm very curious. Like, I have friends who absolutely hate it. And I also know people who actually really like it, and I'm just like, okay.
No, but do the heights wither though? Like, do they explain?
Yes, they actually say that the heights wither in that book.
I knew it. Sorry.
But yeah, we would love to know what you're reading, and tune in again soon for another What We Read. Goodbye!